Oh man. So music is so I'm a musician. I'm the lead singer of a punk rock band called Ocean's Way, based in Munich, Germany. And if you would have told me 20 years ago when I first picked up a guitar that I'd be playing in a German band, I'd say you're crazy. I'd say you're out of your mind, man. What the hell are you talking about? Germany? What? Like that was just so that was another planet as far as I was concerned when I was a kid. Um so I grew up in Los Angeles in a suburb of LA, in a predominantly working class Hispanic community. Um and there wasn't a ton of structure in my household growing up. I'll be honest, it was pretty chaotic to say the least. But one thing there was no shortage of was music. So I grew up in the 90s, and this was when punk rock and grunge were exploding. So with that lack of structure, I kind of found it in music. You know, I would grab me and my brother, we're very close, and we would spend hours watching MTV. Like, I tell people this all the time. For better or for worse, we were raised by a television and a radio. you know,
It's a very
um,
90s thing to do. It's probably an 80s thing to do as well in some
oh,
respect. I mean, when you
exactly.
say that to kids now, they probably don't know what you're talking about. What is
That's
this
true.
MTV you speak of? You know?
And yeah, and what is a stereo? What is a CD player? What is a
Yeah.
cassette player? What are you talking about, man? It's crazy. But yeah, it makes you feel old sometimes. You're like, Jesus Christ. But no, music was that important to myself and my family. I mean, my dad introduced punk rock into our household, and it just made sense to me. Like punk just sort of clicked for me as a kid, you know. And if that's happening as a kid, then that tells me then that's what I kind of I don't know. That's what I gravitate towards because, like I said, it just makes sense. I mean, I listen to other things as well. I mean, growing up in LA, you know, there was a ton of hip hop as well. Like we listened to a lot of NWA, Tupac, Biggie, Snoop Dogg, all these West Coast artists who are just as influential as the rock on the radio. So it was like this just plethora of music just being thrown at me, and I loved every bit of it because all these crazy sounds were coming out, and the '90s was just such a you know different time for music because they were starting to experiment with things, and I loved it, everything, So long story short, I just kind of had, like I said, I found refuge in music. It was kind of like a safe place for me when things were popping off in the house, fights or drama. I mean, we moved houses a lot as a kid. I didn't have a very stable childhood. We went from house to house to house. We never had one place, always changing friends. So it was a lot for a kid. But music was always my saving grace, in particular punk rock, because of that, um, that grittiness, that angst, and that angst let me express the anger that I was feeling that I didn't even understand myself. Do you know what I mean? And, I mean, one of my favorite bands was Social Distortion, which is a local band over here in LA. And I remember looking at like the sleeve of the CD. I'd open the booklet and I'd see pictures of Mike Ness with his tattoos, holding his semi-hollow body guitar, and thinking, I want to be just like that guy when I grow up, And whereas other kids were like looking to basketball players and football players and presidents and stuff, those weren't my role models. My role models were rock stars, man.
You can't really help what you gravitate towards. I think that's you
Yeah,
can still enjoy your sports and all that, but if there's
sure.
something that just as you were saying there, like it hits you, you can't really explain how or why, but it's just something inside that clicks, and then you're like, all right, I
Right.
got it now.
Right. Exactly. That's a great point. You can't really help what, inspires you. If it clicks, it clicks. You just got to run with it. And believe me, I've dabbled in many things in my life. I mean, music isn't all I do. I mean, I'm also a big nerd. I love to learn. I studied politics in college. I was actually going to be a diplomat for the U.S. government at one point. I was seriously considering a career in government for a while. But again, the older I got, the more passion started to outweigh sort of like I guess, societal norms. Do you know what I mean? Because for me, it kind of started to become more of a question of, well, do I really want to do this, or am I doing what I think I should be doing? You know what I'm saying? And music just, I don't know. I even like stopped doing music for a while. So let me kind of back up a little bit before I get ahead of myself. I don't want to skip any important parts about my journey. So, um, I started my first band at 13. I was still in middle school at the time, and this is when you didn't spread the word with Instagram. You spread the word about your shows with